This is our TLS Surging Sparks Top 10.
Hi, I'm Z-Man Cuddles. I'll be talking about the Gym Leader Challenge top 10 cards in Surging Sparks, and I'm joined by On Guard.
And I will be covering the top 10 cards from Surging Sparks for the standard format. With that being said, let's hop into the 10th for GLC.
Let's get into it. So we have Gouging Fire. So for 100 damage and 3 energy, it's doing the Blazing Charge attack, which this sounds crazy, but that's actually really good because it doesn't have an ability. You can play Green's Exploration, letting you find 2 trainer cards in the early game, unlike Entei that turns that off. And then once your opponent goes down to 4 prizes, that 100 boosts up to 170. Great number to hit. I think this will not be game-changing for Fire, but is a must-include into Fire list.
And then we hop into standard top 10. I think that Hydreigon EX, although not the best deck in the format, will still be an impactful deck in this format. Hydreigon has a hefty 330 HP and has a solid 2 energy attack with Crashing Headbutt that does 200 to the active and discards 3 from the top of your opponent's deck. This is a good number to hit, but on top of which, with Binding Mochi and Pecharunt, you can hit a solid 240, which is insane into the majority of, 2-prize big basic decks, while also having that additional discard top 3 from your opponent's deck, and being able to attack with just a single energy attachment with either Basic Dark and Counter Gain, or just straight up Neo Upper Energy. It's a solid attack. But into other evolution decks, the second attack, Obsidian, just Obsidian for whatever reason, is Psychic Dark Metal Colorless, and it does 130 to active and 2 of the opponent's bench, which is insane. If you manage to pull this off with, Neo Upper, Dark Energy, and either Dark Patch or Counter Gain, you can be completely wiping your opponent's board. That's why I think this card, although not the best deck in the format, is going to be super consequential overall.
The thing is a brewer's dream. You know how I'm powering it up? I'm going Magneton to a Miraidon, Thornton into the Dino, and then boom, just blowing up everything.
Yeah, my plan is just go Neo Upper, Dark Patch, Counter Gain. Or
That is
even
the
just
smart plan.
yeah.
I
It
am
seems
built
kind of
different.
simple. I just want to swing with Crashing Headbutt until we get the opportunity to Obsidian at the right time.
Bingo.
All right,
All
hopping
right, now,
into GLC
format
9.
I know a little bit better. Yep.
Yep,
What do we
back
have at
into
number 9
GLC
here?
9.
Smoochum has a delightful kiss. This one's simple. The baby Pokemon are pretty broken, I think, in both formats. For your treat, 30 HP, be careful of that. But for no energy, you can accelerate too. Psychic's a little bit slow to get going. It's known as a setup deck. This helps accelerate and get the pace of the game going. So, great card. Really speaks for itself there. You can play Cleffa or Smoochum. You can do both. Opens it up in really all the archetypes of Psychic.
Yeah, I've heard that Psychic overall has so many good cards it's hard to decide which 60 to run. But Psychic
Yes,
just seems
there's-
insane in GLC.
There's more than one Psychic card in this set review. We will definitely say that.
Oh, of course, of course. Let's hop into standard number 9. I think this card is mad underrated. Slacking EX has a massive 340 HP with an ability that says if your opponent has no Pokemon EX or Pokemon V in play, this Pokemon can attack. Obviously, the ability is not good, but most of the time, your opponent will have a Pokemon EX or Pokemon V in play. Most of the time, it'll be a support Pokemon, even if they aren't running a direct EX or V deck. With that, the attack that it has, Great Swing, for 280 damage, is literally just discard an energy from this Pokemon. With Counter Gain, for a single basic energy, you're swinging 280, which hits a lot of numbers in this format. You immediately knock out a Regidrago or a Palkia. Or with something like Max Belt, you could just be bonk a evolution Pokemon. Granted, you can't have both Counter Gain and Max Belt on it at the same time, but it's another potential tool you could have on it. You could either go DTE Max Belt, or you could go Basic Energy Counter Gain. I think that it's insane. You can also run it with Monkey Dory to enhance the damage as well. Run Basic Darks, because you can go Counter Gain Basic Dark. And you can have those Basic Darks to move off damage to modify your damage a little bit further. I think Slacking is super underrated, and I think it will see quite a few inclusions in decks over the course of these next couple of formats, especially considering it's very splashable. It's a colorless Pokemon with a massive amount of health.
You know the other thing that's great with being colorless and a massive amount of health? You can share and scare that thing.
That is true. You can Sharon's Care this. You could also Turo, but Sharon's Care lets you get all the cards back to hand. In case it was like, say, a Neo Upper or a Max Belt
Right.
on it. You can get those back to hand and reuse them. Alright, on to GLC number 8.
Okay, so the Eternatus, the first attack, you see it says EX in the text. You're like, what is this junk? It's about the second attack. You're going to play Fire in every single Dragonless. You're not probably going to play Dark, but there's a double Dragon Energy which works as a double Rainbow and then hits for 250. This clears everything. If you don't play Gym Leader Challenge, if you're watching this because you play Standard, there's this thing called a Whale Lord that has 200 HP and it takes 30 less damage. So it effectively is a 230 boss monster in the format. This just says delete. In your Dragon deck, you can put down an Eternatus, Raihan to have their Raihan accelerate the fire, and then slam down the double Dragon energy. I think this card is interesting. It's not an auto-include, but the fact that Dragon has this in their toolbox, they didn't have anything else that could answer Whale Lord quite the same. They did have... I'm wrong. They had Haxorus, but that's a stage 2, and Evolving is for nerds. This is a basic, just go fast and do it that way. Raihan DDE, Eternatus.
Evolving is for nerds. That's hilarious. Seems like this attack could really be a world ender for your opponent.
Hey!
Alright, let's hop into the standard number 8 now. I also think this card is mad underrated. This is a card that lets you keep certain pieces in your hand if you're looking for combo pieces, switch if you're against control or need to reset a certain attack. Like, overall, this is a very good card as a supporter. Obviously, there are stronger supporters. There's, like, Research, because you could get a full hand of 7. There's Arven, which tutors out basically 2 specific cards that you would want. But I think Surfer has a very specific place in the format, especially for a lot of decks that want to be getting in and out of the active. Particularly things like Miraidon, Iron Valiant in particular for me, as I am a huge Iron Valiant enjoyer. Surfer is going to be my go-to supporter in Valiant decks going forward, because I can hold on to some of those combo pieces while also drawing cards and getting that additional switch effect off, which I think is very good for the deck. It may not be an auto-include into every single deck, but I do think it is a very strong card.
This is an honorable mention in Gym Leader Challenge. We currently have Tayden Liza, which is a Shuffle Draw 5 or Switch. It's nice to be able to save some of those cards in your hand, and I think this goes immediately into fighting decks.
Yeah, I do think that this is a very good card that'll be seen in a lot of different decks in both GLC and Standard.
Yeah, people are sleeping on it, but
for
it's
sure.
subtly but really good. I mean, it can be a +4 and a Switch. That's amazing.
I need to buy a full playset of the full art to run in decks, because I love this card. Anyway.
Get them now while they're cheap.
GLC
Speaking
7.
of which, On Guard, I'm having some painful memories. Wait a second, that's just an Uxie. So what looks like a simple attack, put 2 damage counters on each opponent's Pokemon, is just going to outclass a Meloetta that gets played in Lost Zone and Psychic Spread right now, which you have to flip coins. You flip 3 coins, and then the damage counters are based on the amount of coins. This is better. Now, I should really say the whole Lake Trio goes into this. You have one attacker that can do damage based on how many damage counters are on your opponent's Pokemon. I think that's an Azelf. You might just play the Azelf that does 2 more damage counters on top of this Uxie. And then what's really interesting too is there's a Mesprit that does 160 if you have the other 2. You can do Rescue Carrier to get them back. You can do Tulip or Clara to get them back. So the Lake Trio as a whole really is going to redefine the Psychic Spread archetype, and then possibly have a Turbo Psychic attacking list with just having these low energy spread attackers. So something a little bit lower to the ground, and will partner well with another card you'll see further into the set review.
Yeah, I also am a huge fan of that Painful Memories attack. It gives me a lot of, like... It gives me Flying Flip thoughts. Like, It makes me remember Tapu Koko Flying Flip from the Sun and Moon format, which I am a huge fan of. This doesn't have free retreat or anything, but rather than it being pure damage, which would be blocked by something like Manaphy, this is just a 2 damage counter spread that'll hit everything regardless, unless they have, like, a Jirachi in play, but, like, no one's playing Jirachi right now.
No, the only thing that stops it is Machoke, and you're going to beat fighting, because you hit him for weakness, so
yeah, for sure.
You have this, yeah.
Alright, on to standard number 7. I think that this card is going to shake up the format quite a bit. This gives a lot of different decks the tools it needs to beat those evolution decks that they might otherwise struggle with hitting the numbers against. Particularly, this is a huge asset to Pikachu EX, which is also coming out in this set, that can just pop basically any stage 2 aside from like slacking in this format, because you just lower their health by 30 and then pop them. Offensive stadiums are always way more practical than defensive stadiums, because defensive stadiums your opponent could just bump, but the offensive ones you get immediate value off of, which I do think has a significant place in this format. I do think Gravity Mountain is going to be very consequential and will determine just how viable certain Stage 2 decks are going into upcoming formats.
It also means your Dusclops can kill an Archeops, doesn't it?
That is true. Or, well, not Dusclops, but the Dusknoir can kill an Archeops. Yeah. You can lower their health to 120 and just be like... And that's not your attack for turn, so you could then go, well, I'm gonna countercatcher or boss the other one and knock it out. No Archeops.
We're bird hunting season.
Yeah, I would say one of my favorite things to do with Dragapult is I go pop a Dusknoir, hit an Archeops, boss up or countercatcher up the other Archeops, and then KO one, spread to the other one, and KO the other. Double Archeops is so funny, and I love playing against Lugia with Dragapult just to do that.
Oh yeah, this is why spread's the best.
Oh, for sure. Spread decks are like my favorites. Valiant and Dragapult are like two of my favorite decks right now. On to
So
GLC
our
number
top 10 might
6
be a
then.
little biased from me.
Yeah, for sure.
We might be biased as both gamers, because if you like spread, you're a real gamer.
I'm trying to be as not biased as possible, but I will admit I do really like spread. On to GLC number 6 though.
Oh, darn it. I was hoping this would be a spread attacker. That's okay. This goes into the best spread deck of Gym Leader Challenge, which is Lost Zone Psychic. Call Bell for Colress's Experiment. You're playing a bazillion draw cards based on item-based turbo to try to find it. Hey, just find the Call Bell. So I think the same way that Battle VIP Pass is frustratingly good in a singleton format, because you can just discard it with something like a Battle Compressor, Call Bell fits right into there. It finds a home immediately into Lost Zone Psychic, but really in any kind of, I'll say, cheesy deck, Call Bell's worth it. If you have a free slot, in the same way that, for me, I tried VIP Pass, trying to be a hater of it, and then just kept being good in all these different decks that are already good. Call Bell's kind of the same. If you miss it, you can just refinement it away with a Curlia, a Liepard, you can discard it with an Ultra Ball. It's no big deal unless you're in a top deck war and that's your top deck. In that case, you're already in a bad place. So really the biggest argument is it worth the deck slot? Well, if you're looking for a specific supporter, yes it is.
Yeah, I would also say that Call Bell is good in Standard as well. I wouldn't say that it's like the best, because obviously past turn 1 it's a dead card. But I do think that it will find a place in Standard, and I think it falls a little bit outside of the top 10 cards from the set for Standard formats. But it allows decks like Bonnet to immediately grab Salvatore, and rather than relying on a coin flip for your Shuppet to item lock people turn 1, you can just go Call Bell, Salvatore, evolve up your Shuppet into Bonnet, attach, item lock turn 1, which is great for slowing down those pesky Dusknoir decks that want to just be popping and destroying your engine early on. But in addition to that, it could also just see splashable play in some of these Pokestop decks that want to be like, I want to get Sada immediately in this game, and not even risk whiffing off Pokegear. Granted, I do think playing 4 Pokegear is generally better in the Standard format, but Call Bell lets you find something very specific, particularly if you have a little bit of a harder-to-hit supporter line. Particularly if it's something that's, like, a one-of that you want to see turn 1 specifically, but don't want to see on any other turn. Call Bell is a really good card. On to Standard number 6. This card is cracked. It is absolutely a fantastic control card. Crushing Pulse is your opponent reveals their hand, discard all item cards and Pokemon tool cards you find there. This discards candies, this discards Forest Seal Stone if it's there, if they're trying to hold on to it, Sparkling Crystal, etc. Like, Nest Balls, Ultra Balls, Earthen Vessels, Night Stretchers. There are so many item cards that people will just hold in their hand that are just going to be yeeted by Crushing Pulse on turn 1 of the game. This, I don't think, only has a position in Control, but might find room in any deck that plays any Lightning Energy. I do think that even Miraidon could fit this into a list, and you could go Miraidon, Latios, retreat into Rotom, because you might want to be throwing off your opponent's prize trade. You could go Crushing Pulse, slow them down, and put them onto an odd prize trade by having them hit a one prizer, which I think is super solid. The attack energy short, which does 20 damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, is also neat in a pinch. It's obviously not the best attack in the world, but on a one prizer, it could be solid into some certain matchups. Especially putting things into range of like that Miraidon 220.
I think you're cooking there too, because Miraidon's worst matchup is Charizard, so just snipe the rare candies before they evolve those little suckers, and you're cooking.
Just eat that. Granted, I don't think Miraidon has that bad of a matchup against it anymore, now that it has both Magneton, Gravity Mountain, and Pikachu EX.
It's the time for Miraidon. This is Lightning Set.
Miraidon gamers.
Sparks?
Yeah, those sparks are going to be surging.
Sparks are flying tonight.
For sure.
What do we got up here next?
On to GLC number 5.
Oh, this goofy clown walrus thing. I think that's a clown wig on there. I don't really know. Is it just a thing of bubbles? Anyway, this Walrein is sick. The first attack for 60 during your opponent's next turn. Pokemon that have 2 or fewer energy cannot attack. That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, the best deck right now is Lost Zone Psychic or Colorless. Doesn't really affect Colorless too much, but you can just auto-win certain matchups like that one, the Hitmons, some of the things we were just talking about, like the Uxie and the Azelf. There's a lot of low-maintenance decks in Gym Leader Challenge. So you have that, and then you know what? If you're not against one of those, the second attack is no slouch. You can, for 2 energy, you can hit for 170 into the active. Now, the downside is you're doing 50 damage to yourself. That kind of stinks. But to be able to have the control element to auto-win certain matchups, and then just also have a delete button, a beat stick, is a nice kind of juxtaposition within a card. Now, you might be thinking Stage 2, that's a bit expensive. Water can afford it. You have an Octillery, which works like Bibarel in Standard. You draw until you have 5. And you have Shady Dealings. For those of you that maybe played Standard a couple years ago, do you miss Shady Dealings? Come back, play some Water GLC. You can still Shady Deal and scoop up net once. But it makes it where, having these other Stage 2s, it's not really that big of a problem. So I think this is cool. Right now I'm playing this in a water spread deck. So the 60s don't just go away forever. And even though I just talked about Shady Dealings, I'm actually using the quick shooting Inteleon, so you can finish off things with that. This has a lot of potential, and I think this is something for a brewer, for a deck brewer. Maybe not in a already developed archetype, but I think something can come out of like a quasi water disruption control spread kind of thing.
Yeah, and Irida could also get that out super fast too. Just grabbing Candy Walrein seems super good. In addition to that, in Standard you can also Shady Dealings and Scoop Up Net once. It's called Noctowl and Scoop Up Cyclone.
That's right.
Regardless, I also think that Walrein is a neat little rogue deck in Standard format as well, because I saw a Japanese list of this. It's popped up like once or twice, but just being able to slow down your opponent with Frigid Fangs, because a lot of things are 2 energy attackers. Even Raging Bolt is just a 2 energy attacker. So you slow them down, make them need to get an extra energy on in order to attack, up to 3, and after you've gotten that damage on the field with that little bit of 60, you can immediately Megaton Fall after, just to get up to that, what would normally be 2 prize basic knockout, which I think is nice.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Plus, Frigid Fangs affects all of the things on their field, so it's not like the defending Pokemon can't attack, it's your opponent's Pokemon that have 2 or less energy can't attack. So if they're a deck that wants to only be swinging with 2 energy attackers, they have to allocate that 3rd energy in order to actually hit you.
No, just play Pokemon Ranger, which no one does in my format, and it doesn't exist in yours. So.
Yeah, it doesn't exist here. I wish it did. I wish the game existed again in, like, the real world. Like, I want to play Pokemon Ranger on the Switch.
I missed that one, I'll be honest.
Moving on, let's hop into Standard number 5. Alright, Precious Trolley. This card is an insane consistency boost for any deck that wants a wide bench immediately. You can literally just go Arven for Precious Trolley for a Sealstone, have a full bench, and get any other 1 card that you want. This Precious Trolley grabs you the V Pokemon that you need for the Forest Sealstone as well. Like, It's insane. This card is such a good setup card, and I think it's the card that was needed to make Blissey good. Because the biggest thing about Blissey is you can't get those Chanseys down very easily, because 110 is a terrible number for getting out, aside from just nest balling onto the field. If we had a Chansey with 100 HP, then we could just go Fan Rotom, grab 3 Chanseys. But we don't have that. So, Precious Trolley is the solution. Arven, Precious Trolley, Forest Seal Stone, or even you could grab the Turbo Energize TM. And you go attach, Turbo Energize, Accelerate 2. You've already got energy in play to move over with Blissey. I think this card is exactly what Blissey needed, but in addition to that, it's good in a lot of other decks as well. Including Palkia and Miraidon.
So... Sorry, I'm a Reggie gamer, so yeah, you were talking about other decks. I love to see Reggies taking out the Precious Trolley. Just picturing all those blokes on a trolley is adorable, and the fact that, you know, the bench can really be 7 or 8, I guess, with the Terra Stadium.
8 with the Terra Stadium. Honestly, I think that's insane, and I do think that this gives Reggies a last needed boost for, like, a last stand before it rotates next year. Being able to just go, I'm gonna Precious Trolley and go, all my Reggies, is hilarious. You can also now grab Pikachu EX with it as the Terra for the Area 0, and you can just keep resetting it with the Regigigas, and you go Regigigas onto Pikachu EX, swing for 300, and you could also play the Galvantula EX to be 180 item lock consecutively, which I think is amazing as well.
Not too shabby.
Reggie's coming back, baby! But Precious Trolley is an insane card.
It really is.
I should really revisit Reggie's, because that seems like a hilarious deck to play.
It's so much fun. It's one of the 3 I play right now.
Oh, for sure. Let's hop into GLC number 4.
Okay, so we're talking about Precious Trolleys and some cheesy cards. It doesn't get cheesier than Wonder Kiss. So, if you knock out the active, roll heads. Guess what? You get an extra prize. Imagine that in a single prize format. Can you imagine that, On Guard? Oh, that's pretty good. You know, you say that's a stage 2. It's a little bit hard to set up. It's okay. For Psychic, the only stage 2 you really need is the Gallade. Now, I will say, run this, though, with the Dusknoir if you can afford it. Because if you Dusknoir the active and then roll heads, extra prize. And then your turn doesn't end, so then you can attack into it. Boom, extra prize. You might be thinking, all right, Togekiss is a cool... like cheesy Pokemon kind of on my bench. What else can I do with it? Look at that energy cost. Speedwing is 3 colorless. So you have reversal energy like you do in standard. We also have something called triple acceleration energy, which is a triple colorless energy that can only go onto evolutions. Well, Togekiss is an evolution. So you have those as options, and you also have Dimension Valley, which means it's a stadium where your attackers, your psychic attackers, can attack for 1 less colorless. So you can just use your twin, your double turbo, or your second twin energy that can play the double colorless. You have all these different ways to attack with it, and the attack stats aren't that bad on it. So Speedwing for 140 can take out pretty much any basic in the game, and then it can just serve as an attacker itself. So this is a really cool card, and it can maybe just slot right into the Tinkaton Gallade, take out the Tinkaton line. But I think the coolest way to do it is maybe with a Dusknoir or a Monkey Dory deck, something that can take multiple prizes a turn. And then I'm going to be maybe losing some credibility here. I'm playing the card Will in my deck. On Guard, do you know what Will does?
Yeah, it's the next head. The next thing you roll is heads. I think that's hilarious with this.
It's hilarious how much I want it back to the point I am trying to fit Palpad in my deck. Because with Gallade's ability, you can find a supporter whenever you want.
Yeah.
And so I had been Gallading for Will an irresponsible amount of times. and I just want to keep doing that. Because you know what? Hex Maniac is good. Gust is good. But the best ability is taking 2 prizes in a turn in a singleton format. So this card's really good. It should maybe even be higher than number 4. But no one's really, truly cracked it yet. So yeah. I'm putting it at number 4 right now.
I would also say that a hilarious thing you can do with Togekiss, even in the standard format, is if your opponent has, like, a Duskull or a Dusclops or a Dusknoir in play, if you boss it up into the active, where they, like, have to either manually retreat off of it or pop it in order to get out of the active, If they pop their own Dusknoir, that triggers this ability. It's so funny. You could make them take 2 prizes on themselves just to get out of the active.
That's amazing.
Which is hilarious. But in addition to that, I've also seen this actually ran in the new Rainbow Golden Go deck in Standard,
Right.
which has Energy Search Pro, which is just search your deck for as many different color energy as possible, so you're just like, an entire rainbow in my hand. But it's ran in that in addition to the Golden Go, so you can take some extra prizes off of your big knockouts. I've also seen a variation of it that's running not just a 101 Togekiss line, but a 101 Dusknoir line as well. Do the thing that you had just mentioned, where you pop something in the active, potentially take 2 prizes, and then you pop something in the active, potentially take 2 prizes.
Exactly. Let the law of averages take over. Eventually, you're going to get a heads. If you get the 50% and you're taking 2, then one of them will be lucky.
Oh, for sure. I do think that this card is really good, even in Standard.
I think so, too.
Alright, let's move on to the Standard number 4, Terra Orb. One of the big problems with some of these evolving Terra decks, like Charizard, or Dragapult, or Hydreigon, is that it is sometimes hard to find your evolution to be able to go candy up, or sometimes you don't want to discard the pieces from your hand with Ultra Ball. Terra Orb is a perfect solution to that, because it is, similarly to Feather Ball, just an out to that evolution that you wanted without discarding anything. You go Terra Orb for Dragapult, Terra Orb for Charizard, Terra Orb for Hydreigon, similarly to how you went Feather Ball for Pidgeot EX.
That's right.
I think this card is insane in any of those evolution Terra decks.
I've been playing this in my Hydrogen deck, or I can't say it correct.
Hydrogen.
I always say Hydrogen. It started as a joke, but now I'm stuck on calling it Hydrogen.
Yeah.
And I mean, even just having this as a 1 or 2 of is game changing for the consistency. Because sometimes at Ultra Ball, we don't like to admit it, but the discarding 2 cards can hurt.
Yeah.
And not having to discard 2, pretty good.
Yeah, I've been playing this in Dragapult, and it is so good. It is amazing to just not need to discard the other pieces that were in your hand, because you're like, I needed these. Ah, it's so good. I love the Terra Orb for this for sure. All right, let's hop to GLC number 3.
All right.
Ooh.
On guard, I have good news for you. The spread propaganda is great. I'm sorry.
You are not immune to spread propaganda.
Yeah. Editor, edit that part out. On guard, I have good news for you. The spread propaganda is back with our number 3 pick, Cofragigas. So for 1 energy,
wait, did you just say? Hang on. Did you just say Did you just say Cofragigas?
Yeah, how do you say it?
Cofagrigus.
All right, I'm gonna call him Coffin Boy.
Coffin Boy. It's like
right,
coffin and egregious.
Coffin egregious. Cofagrigus? Is that
yes,
how you say it?
Cofagrigus, yes. Cofagrigus.
All right, coming in for our 3rd pick, we have the Psychic Spread Manipulation coming back from 2 fans of Spread. We have Coffin Boy, or as On Guard taught me how to say it, Cofagrigus. You have to remember it's like coffin and egregious. I'll probably be calling it Coffin Boy for the rest of this YouTube video.
I've also heard people call it Cofagrigus. But
that can't be right.
Yeah, I prefer Cofagrigus.
So for 1 energy, you're going to be doing Law of the Underworld, which does 6 damage counters to every Pokemon with an ability. Guess what? If a Pokemon is good, it has an ability. Z-Man, there's a downside. It hits my own. Well, you make your deck around it. So you play those Lake Trio people we were talking about, which do not have any abilities. You play the Gallade because it's worth putting it on there. It takes about 3 turns to knock itself out. And then you play the Monkey Dory. So you make it where putting damage on yourself is a good thing. Similar to Gardevoir EX and Standard, you just move that off to your opponent's Pokemon. So it can be finishing off something that has the 6 damage counters, or perhaps something that doesn't have an ability that you want to finish off. So this card is cracked. And, you know, you have to give up the Malamar or the Xatu or some of your other accelerants, but it's okay because both the Coffin Boy and the Lake Trio are 1 or 2 energy attackers. So this completely changes the game for Psychic Spread, and they needed it after the Dust Skull banned. So I think this card's awesome, and will completely reshape Psychic Spread in the meta.
Yeah, I really like this. I also remember there being some other cards that have, like, the similar, like, does things to each thing that has an ability. I'm trying to remember what that was. I think it was a Weavile.
There is a
Uh,
Weavile, yeah. And there's a deck with that that just won Full Grip Games last week, a dark spread deck with that, and the new Yveltal.
yeah,
So I
the
mean, 60 everywhere is just that's a
oh for
great
sure.
number.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Evil Admonition. It does 50
that's right.
times each from your opponent's Pokemon that has an ability. So it feels like a similar vein to that, where it's like a cheap stage 1 attacker that does things based on how many abilities your opponent has in play, basically.
Yeah, it's a crack card. I
All right.
mean, if they have 4 abilities, that's 240 damage for one
For 1
attack,
energy, it's
and then
crazy.
yeah, and then the Monkey Dory synergy just really gives you that comeback mechanic, and then also counters if you're playing against a spread deck yourself. It's a really good deck, and it's psychic, so it has all the consistency pieces. I think this is probably the best new archetype that's coming out of the set.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is insane. Now let's say goodbye to the Coffin Boy and hop to a standard number 3. Standard number 3 is Counter Gain. I am sure this does not come as a surprise to anyone, but Counter Gain is insane. It enables so many different lines of play in a variety of different decks, and just there are so many ways to go behind on prizes, whether it be Magneton or Dusknoir or Dusclops. There are a lot of ways to do that, or you're a slower setup deck and you're just naturally getting knocked out early. This allows you to attack a lot sooner for a lot less energy. And by a lot less energy, I mean 1 less energy. But still, 1 less attachment is solid. This could potentially be what brings Meowscarada back into the format. I'm always talking about Meowscarada potentially making a comeback in the format, but I think Counter Gain actually helps with that. Counter Gain on Meowscarada or Counter Gain on Hydreigon is also super insane. There are a ton of different ways you can use this, including on that earlier slacking we mentioned. Counter Gain just enables so many things, and in a format with so many ways to intentionally go behind on prizes and use that to your advantage, I feel like Counter Gain is going to see a ton of use in upcoming formats.
Oh yeah, I'm a control head, so I love this. Right now I'm playing this with Buffalo Control. It's an energy denial with the different Bouffalants, the ones that make it you take 60
Yeah,
less. But then also the energy denial because double turbo counter gain's easier than doing the fire cheese. We already have this in Gym Leader Challenge. This card is cracked.
yeah, absolutely insane. Let's hop over to GLC number 2 then.
All right,
This is a
I
real
had to
titan.
give my boy Titan the best art. Look at him. He's got a solid body and a dangerous mouth. You could be so lucky to have Titan in your deck. So, Tanky Whales is known as one of the best decks in the format. You have the Whale Lord that has 200 HP and takes 30 less damage. This one has 180 HP and takes 30 less damage. Why is that significant? Damage reduction is better than HP boosting. So, having to play something like a Luxurious Cape is okay until it gets field blowered away or lost vacuumed away. The 30 damage is relevant because it's active. So one of the most popular decks, Snorlax, hits into Titan for 180. Wrong. It hits in for 160. It survives. It gives you the chance to play your Mallow and Lana or to be able to have a return kill. So this just really helps so that way Tanky Water has another tool in its arsenal to be able to deny prizes and then start healing.
Yeah, I just want to call out one thing. You said that Snorlax hits for 180. No, it hits for 160. This is a minus 30, my dude.
I am not a math major.
I'm not a math major either, but I also passed the first grade. All
I
right.
didn't, no child left behind. They just pushed me through.
Either way,
Now I talk about Pokemon cards.
Either way, I do love this card. It is a beautiful art, it is fantastically tanky, and it swings for a good amount of damage. Plus, with the earlier card that you had mentioned, the triple acceleration energy, if you already had a water on there, you can go triple acceleration energy, swing for 150. Of course, it discards the triple acceleration energy afterwards, but that's a solid way to get 150 damage off on something that's going to take a long time to kill. Especially against, like, decks that don't swing a heavy amount of damage super early, because the more times they have to swing into you where you take 30 less damage, the more value you're getting off of solid body.
Oh yeah, and I should mention acceleration is so easy in water. You have Frostmoth, which accelerates an unlimited amount of water. You have Blastoise that now actually not the old one, but Vitality Springs, one that's in
Yeah.
standard, funny enough, accelerates 6 special energies from the deck. End your turn, but that's fine
Oh
because you have
yeah.
a bunch of tanky boys. And then of course you have Baxcalibur, so that's the best thing too is being able to accelerate everything is great. Or like you said, you could go Raihan and then it
Raihan
attach a
triple,
triple
yeah,
acceleration.
triple
Yep,
excel. Either way, it definitely seems more effective to use like the Frostmoth and whatnot because that's just immediately onto the
a little
field.
bit, but I like your style here.
Yeah,
I can tell you're already cooking. This is going to be the first GLC deck that On Guard whips up with Searching Sparks.
I would probably say that I would probably be cooking more Lightning than anything else. I think Lightning is my favorite style of GLC, even though it's not the strongest right now because it lost like the amazing rare Raikou a little bit ago.
Right,
Either
just
way,
got to make the
I'm
new Rotom work.
yeah. One of the things that I really wanted to do in GLC before it got banned was just Raihan counter energy onto Raikou, because
Oh, yeah.
insane.
It's so insane.
All right, on to standard number 2. You might be surprised that this isn't at number 1, but I have a card that I think is better overall in like more decks for number 1, but Pikachu EX is a very solid number 2 slot here. It has the ability Resolute Heart, which if this Pokemon is full HP and would be knocked out by damage from an attack, it's not knocked out. It has 10 health remaining, which is insane. It basically means that this almost guaranteed gets 2 attacks off or lives for 2 turns. This is nice against things like Raging Bolt, where they physically have to swing into this multiple times. The best thing that they can do is play Canceling Cologne in order to turn off the ability to knock it out. But they also don't really want to be taking up space for Canceling Cologne in their decks in most cases. Regardless, having a built-in Focus Sash is insane. The biggest thing that counters this right now is actually Cloth, which is funny. Because Cloth will poison you and then hit you, and then the poison kills you. So the funniest thing about Pikachu EX is that it brings Cloth into the format again, which I think is amazing, because Cloth is hilarious. But there's so many different ways to play Pikachu EX. You could play it as just the Terra Bench Sitter in Miraidon, and go wide bench, Area 0 Raikou for quick swings. You can play this with Sparkling Crystal and Crispin, and go Sparkling Crystal, Crispin, swing for 300 super easily. You can play it with Miraidon and the Magneton, and just dedicate to using Magneton to set this up, and maybe go Joltik at the beginning of the game to accelerate a Lightning and a Grass to this, and a Lightning and a Grass to another one of them. There are so many different ways that you can play this. I've also seen Blissey with this, so you go Precious Trolley, get this into play, and all the Chanseys, and then you go Glass Trumpet, move them up with Blisseys, swing for 300. And with Gravity Mountain, you're swinging for those big Stage 2 EX numbers as well. I think Pikachu EX has a very good position in this format right now, and the top 3 decks in this format, being Raging Bolt, Regidrago, and Charizard, means that Pikachu is very good into this format.
Right, I've been loving it in the Reggie's deck, and I haven't cooked with it yet too, but I've seen some Lost Zone lists with it that I really want to try, because I used to love the one with the amazing rare Rayquaza.
Yeah, the Rayquaza one. Yeah, it feels like that.
Exactly. It's the same energy requirements, so it's speaking to me on a spiritual level.
Oh, for sure. And I've definitely seen it as like the closer of Lost Box. Lost Box is not like exactly my forte. I do like Lost Box as a deck. It's just not the way that I immediately look to playing it, but it seems like an insane finisher in that deck too.
All right, our number ones.
Number 1 for GLC is Wolchi and
Here's
Pog.
the moment.
All right.
Here's the moment everyone's been waiting for. And didn't you know it? It's a Wo-Chien.
That's what we're talking about. That's what it's all about anyway.
Woo!
Woo! Yeah,
Snail
baby!
time.
Snail time!
So, if you played your first game of Gym Leader Challenge, you were probably handed a grass or a water deck. And if you got a grass deck, you were handed a boomer one. And by that I mean a Rillaboom and Venusaur deck. That deck has not kept up with the times. It's too slow. You're going to be down 2 prizes before you get going. You can't do that. So right now, Cherrim Eldegoss is the best way and the fastest way to play grass. And you can dedicate your deck into actually milling it out. So that way on turn 6 or whenever your last turn of the game is, you can actually hit the Hazardous Greed. Now, the benefit of grass is it plays off the board. You have Grottle's ability, Sundrenched Shell, that can take out all of your grass Pokemon and set up your board. You have Eldegoss, which gets 2 energies out of your deck. So you can just grab all your resources and set up your board early on, and then play these discarding supporters to make sure that you're thinning out your deck. Your Torterra will probably tank a hit and go 2 for 1, giving up only 1 prize but taking 2. The Hazardous Greed Wo Chien will do the same. And it's not just dead in the water. So if you are maybe on turn 3 or 4 and you're not all the way through your deck, hitting 130 for 3 is also good, and then it discards 3 cards from your deck, so it helps set it up when you recover it later. So this puts, for me, Grass from a B tier deck to an A tier deck, and I think has the most impactful change. So something like Psychic Spread was already good. I think that was already an A tier deck, and it kind of stays in the A tier. But this, for me, moves the typing up. I think this is the best way to play Grass, and I think it does the most for boosting up a type within the set.
Oh, for sure. I do like this a lot. I do think it is a little greedy. Anyway.
Don't be so hazardous.
Don't be so hazardous. I would say that attack is very hazardous to your opponent's health.
Don't make me entangle you in my whip. Cut that out.
Alright, let's move on to standard number 1. And standard number 1 is, of course, Latias EX. This card is absolutely insane, and there are a ton of big retreat cost basics in the format. For example, Iron Hands in Miraidon, or Oranguru V, which is able to search out 2 different tools, like Forest Seal Stone and Sparkling Crystal at the same time, which is really good for, like, Pikachu EX, if you're wanting to do, like, the Crispin Sparkling Crystal route. But the funny thing about that is that the hardest part about using Oranguru is getting back out of the active afterwards. Latias EX fixes that entirely. You go Latias EX, you move the Oranguru to the active with, like, a switching effect. You would only need 1 switching effect at this point now. Go up, grab Forest Seal Stone, grab Sparkling Crystal. You can now free retreat out. It is super nice for a ton of different decks, especially big basic decks. I would not be surprised if Raging Bolt starts running this to preserve energy and not need to discard an energy off of Ogerpon to retreat back into a Raging Bolt after their lone Raging Bolt is knocked out, or the Miraidon not needing to worry about using a switching effect to get the Iron Hands out of the active anymore, or, in my personal favorite case, Valiant. We don't need to run Future Booster Energy Capsules anymore, which already weren't really doing much aside from giving us free retreat, because you're not getting the damage modification, you're just getting the free retreat aspect of it. This is a single card that sits on your board that is now just like, you don't need Future Booster anymore. All of your Valiants have Future Boosters now, which I think is insane. I love this card, and it has so much utility in so many different decks, aside from the evolution decks, but, like, just every basic has free retreat now by just 1 Pokemon being in play. And I think that is going to be the most impactful card from the set over the course of its lifetime.
Oh yeah, it'll see play for all the years, and it's a Latios, so I think that's really exciting, because I love that line. And free retreat's really good. I'm also very excited for you. I started cooking some ideas myself with the Iron Valiant. I'm sure you have 100 as Iron Valiant's strongest soldier. Yeah.
I am Iron Valiant's strongest soldier.
But being able to save the 3 deck spaces, I mean, that's huge.
Oh, for sure. I am a huge fan of this card. Anyway, now that we're at the end of this, let's wrap this up. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I hope this gave you some insights for some deck building in both the GLC and standard format. Thank you for joining me here, Z-Man.
Thank you for having me, and thank you guys for watching in to the end of the video. Make sure you comment below with what your favorite card is and what we got wrong, but most importantly, what we got right. We love that sweet, sweet praise.
Oh, for sure.
Make sure you follow us on socials. We're on Blue Sky, Twitter, I guess YouTube now, and we have a Discord for TLS. So thank you for watching.
We also got the TLS Twitch as well. But strike first, gamers. We'll catch y'all later.